Hey you guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Esther and this is Esther's Eden. I am so excited for this video. This is something that is very dear to my heart, something that I have focused on in my gardening and something that I get a lot of questions about. So if you are new here, I've been gardening for most of my adult life. I love it. I love gardening. I love wildlife. I grew up in the country and still live in the country. And when I first set out to garden here on this property, our garden now is going into its 7th and 8th season and will change about midway through. I wanted to create a uniquely healthy and different style of garden than most people. So later, after I had already done all of this research on sort of wildlife gardening, and that's probably how I stumbled across something called permaculture gardening. And basically permaculture is just this concept where you look at nature and you mimic it in your own garden. And instead of fighting against nature, you are working with nature. So if you're used to gardening in a very, normal row style garden, this is going to be very new to you. And there are some tips which I will share with you today on how to sort of make that transition and make it not so difficult or challenging for yourself. There are some pros and cons to gardening with wildlife. It's a little tricky and there's no set rules that are going to work for every single garden. So you're gonna have to, hi, what's the matter? All right, so I'm not gonna go into a super deep explanation of everything. I'm going to list a couple of the pros, a couple of the cons, and then give you sort of a exciting jumping point so that if you want to start doing these things, you guys can do them too, and start this year in your own gardens. All right, so let's list the obvious cons. If you attract something like a deer to your garden, it's probably going to eat most of the stuff, unless you are gardening with specific plants that are not edible to deer. Okay, so if you and obviously like there are rabbits that would love to eat your garden. So you're going to have to learn to work with these different animals and decide which ones you want to allow in and which ones you don't want to allow in. Now, a pro is that some animals, and I'm including the animal kingdom, so insects, birds, bugs, rodents, all the things, okay? Not just big mammals or anything. So a pro would be that they can help you pollinate your plants. They can help eat some of the pests that might be crawling around on your plants, or things along that nature. Now, some wildlife can be extremely destructive, especially of your paths or your bulbs or anything like that. And so again, this is kind of, you're gonna have to sort of pick and choose what things you'd like to invite in and which things you would like to keep out. We implement all kinds of different strategies here on the farm. Some of them are things that are going to take many years to establish. We've already been working on them. And I will certainly be taking you along and showing you sort of some of those things as the season progresses. But for now, let's just keep it really simple. Okay, so let's talk about things that you might want to invite into your garden. Things like non-poisonous snakes, for example, or dragonflies, or non-stinging predatory wasps, praying mantis and ladybugs and things like that. So most people are pretty familiar with the bug versions. They can come in and do some things. Whoops, sorry, didn't mean to jog the camera. They can come in and they can really help you out. So another thing could be also frogs and toads. Those can be useful. Now, in our area, I will totally put this caveat out there. We don't have really that many poisonous things. In fact, we don't have any poisonous snakes up here. We don't have, we have some poisonous spiders, and that's about it. So we don't really have to worry about some things that you guys in other warmer climates. So definitely do your research, figure out what you do want to invite into your garden and what you don't want to invite, and then start learning the habits and the habitat and things of that, like so you can bring them into your garden, the things that you want. Okay, so obviously if you add in something like a pond, that will help draw in snakes and bugs and birds and all kinds of different wildlife. So you have to decide you want to put a pond in. That's definitely like one of my favorite things. We've struggled with having a pond, but anyway, we're working to improve that. But having a pond. Building a pile of rocks in your garden. It could be rocks, it could be stumps and logs, it could just even be a sheet of like plywood laid down on the ground. That will give your wildlife that you're trying to attract a little escape from things like maybe your cats, your barn cats and things, but also from aerial predators and things of that nature. And then the last thing that I want to mention is provide the correct plants. And there are so many different things that you can draw in different plant or different beneficial wildlife to your garden. But some of my top ones are calendula, because it blooms in the end of the season. I love to put in violets because it blooms at the beginning of the season. And then creating wild areas within the garden, so places that we don't really go a whole lot, sort of a more weedy things like bachelor's buttons. What, honey? Okay. So planting like a sort of a wild flower patch that you don't really mow it, you just kind of let it be, and then the native bees will come and hang out there. When you put in a pond, you could put in some like bamboo rods and things, and that's going to help the dragonflies have a place to perch, and they're going to be predatory. Praying mantis really like raspberry, and I know people feel different ways about having raspberries because they like to run under the ground and pop up everywhere. So make sure you plant them in a place that they can do that, or you have a plan to help control the spread of them. Your neighbors might not appreciate runners coming up underneath their fences. I don't have to worry about that. I planted mine along the chicken coop, so it gives the chicken some food when it grows up through it, but also it at least is a barrier because those chickens are going to scratch all the time and stop the spread of them, at least on one side. So those are some things that you can do to help draw in the wildlife to your area. Obviously, if you have a deer problem, you're going to want to fence your garden. It is definitely my dream to be able to reduce the fencing and have things available for all the wildlife, but that is a very long-term plan and is requiring an enormous amount of plants and work and time and energy, which I'm excited to be able to do all of those things. But these are places that I started in that I thought I would share with you guys this year. Another thing, so if you have never gardened for wildlife before and you want to get started, you don't have to do a whole lot. Like the things that I just told you are super simple, super quick. Anyone can really implement them. And a pile of rocks doesn't have to be massive. It could be just a tiny pile of rocks. A pond doesn't have to be this great big thing. It can be just a small pond with lots of edging. You know, there's all types of options. There's tons of information on Google and YouTube and books and all kinds of things. But if you want to just kind of ease into the notion of having things specifically in your garden for wildlife, then I highly suggest looking into companion planting. So you can add flowers and herbs to your vegetable garden. You don't have to grow a lot of them, but those things are going to be things that the pollinators are really, really going to love. So putting nasturtium in with your squash, for example, it's going to diversify that area and really help draw in those pollinators. Hummingbirds love nasturtium. Putting in things like scarlet runner beans, the honeybees and the hummingbirds absolutely love the scarlet runner beans, and you can just put one plant in on the end of a bean row, and then you're just bringing in that diversity again. Planting different herbs with different things, like you can put in mint around the edge of your garden, and that will deter rodents. And then you have, if you let it flower, you can again allow those pollinators to come and have the flowers off of the mint, or you could harvest it for yourself and have tea, some kind. Of course, you have to pick and choose what you want. Learn the growth habits of things like mint has a notorious habit of spreading uncontrollably. I personally don't mind because I'm loose gardening in food forest style here, but these are all different things that I have done. And when I had very first started out gardening, I said, I'm not going to grow flowers. They're totally useless. Why will I grow flowers? I will only want to grow vegetables. And that changed within the very first season of me growing. I quickly changed my mind and really have never looked back. It's flowers just bring so much color and so much joy to the garden. But then when you start seeing all of the wildlife, our very first garden, we had a family of skunks that used to visit every single night. And it was just so fun. Like, obviously we had to be very careful not to disturb the skunks while we were gardening, and we were very cautious, especially toward the end of the season when those squash plants got huge and all of that. And that wasn't here at this farm, that was at a different location. But anyway, it just brings such diversity and fun aspects to the garden. And I really encourage you guys, if you've never thought to grow herbs or flowers or gardening specifically for wildlife, I really encourage you to look into that. This monoculture, plant one crop and lots of it, really is unhealthy for us. It's unhealthy for the soil, it's unhealthy for the wildlife. And I think it's time for us to step up as gardeners and really do our part, do our job, and just bring a different element to the garden setting. And then lastly, I wanted to just say, even if you don't want to plant different things, something that you can do for wildlife gardening is make sure you're not using herbicides and pesticides. So at least don't do more damage than is necessary, even if you don't want to specifically garden for wildlife. So yeah, that's today's video, you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you are planning on having a wildlife garden this year. Please let me know in the comments if that's something that you're going to do, and what things are you planning on planting? Which area are you growing in? I would love to hear more about your gardens. So I hope that you guys are enjoying the content in this channel, and I hope that you're enjoying these videos that I'm putting out. If you are, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and share it with your gardening friends. We really appreciate it. It helps the channel grow and helps us to be able to make lots more videos. So thank you for hanging out with me today. Remember to learn and grow. I'll see you in the next one, guys.